I've been married to Mark for 8 years. And on paper, we had everything. A small but cozy home. Weekend routines. Shared Netflix accounts and inside jokes. He always brought me coffee in the mornings. I always kissed his forehead before bed. We were fine. Safe. Predictable. But deep down, I felt something changing. And it wasn't sudden, it was slow. Like watching colors fade from your favorite photo, one pixel at a time. We stopped asking each other how we really felt. Stopped touching without a reason. Stopped seeing each other. The silence between us wasn't angry. It was just there. Constant. Comfortable in the worst way. I started staying late at work. Not because I had to, but because I didn't want to come home yet. Not because I didn't love Mark, but because being around him reminded me of everything we used to be. Sometimes I'd lie in bed next to him, just staring at the ceiling. Wondering how we got here. Was this just what marriage became over time? Was I selfish for wanting more? I never talked to him about it. I was scared. Scared he'd think I was ungrateful, or worse, that he'd agree we were broken. And then, someone noticed me. At work. Just a guy in another department, funny, confident, flirty. He asked about my favorite music. Told me I had a great laugh. Things Mark used to say, before life got too busy. I didn't cheat. Not then. But I let myself feel seen again. Desired. And for a moment I thought, what if I deserve this? What if I'm still allowed to want to feel alive? That was the beginning. Not of the affair. But of the lie I told myself, that I could chase excitement without destroying everything I had. I thought I was in control. I wasn't. I don't like admitting this part. But I think it matters, maybe more than anything else I'll say. By the time I brought up the idea of an open marriage to Mark, I had already slept with someone else. It wasn't a long affair. It wasn't planned. There was no dramatic build-up, no flowers, no hotel suite fantasy. It just happened. A business dinner. A bottle of wine. Laughter that lingered too long. And then, a mistake. I remember the exact moment, standing in front of that cheap motel mirror. Staring at my reflection like it belonged to someone else. My heart was racing. My hands were shaking. And all I could think was, what have I done? I told myself I didn't mean to. That it was a moment of weakness, not betrayal. But the truth? I had made dozens of small choices to get there. The long texts. The shared secrets. The emotional availability I denied my husband but offered freely to another man. I crossed the line long before I touched him. Afterward, I wanted to come clean. I really did. But I was terrified. Not just of losing Mark, but of seeing myself through his eyes. So instead of confessing, I did something worse. I packaged my guilt into a neat little idea. I told Mark I'd been thinking about open relationships. That I'd been reading articles, watching podcasts. That monogamy was outdated. That couples were thriving in more modern setups. I made it sound exciting. Enlightened. Empowered. But it was a lie. Not just to him, to myself. I wasn't trying to evolve our marriage. I was trying to escape accountability. To retroactively justify something I had already done. I didn't want to face the pain of telling him the truth. So I dressed it up in therapy talk and trendy labels. And when he looked at me, confused and hurt, I smiled like it was no big deal. Like it was something we could explore. When really, I had already gone exploring, alone. Looking back, that was the cruelest part. Not the cheating, but the manipulation. Because I knew what I was doing. And I did it anyway. When I told Mark. When I finally said the words out loud. I think we should try an open marriage. He didn't shout. He didn't accuse me. He didn't even ask why. He just stood there, quiet, like the breath had been knocked out of him. And then, after a long pause, he looked straight at me and said, "Okay." One word. Soft. Almost casual. But it hit harder than any scream ever could. Because I was ready for a fight. I was prepared to defend myself, to throw around phrases like emotional growth and modern intimacy. I was even ready for tears. But I wasn't ready for that silence. For that surrender. It wasn't acceptance. It was resignation. He didn't want this. I could see it in his eyes. But he also didn't want to lose me. And in that moment, I realized something horrifying. He loved me so much. He was willing to break himself just to keep me. I remember the next few days vividly. He barely spoke, but he tried. Tried to smile. Tried to act like everything was fine. Tried to be the cool husband who could handle it. And I leaned into the performance. Pretended we were evolving. That this was healthy. Liberating. But inside, I felt like a fraud. The man who made me soup when I was sick. Who held my hand during my father's funeral. Who knew every one of my stories before I told them. Was now pretending not to be devastated. Just so I wouldn't feel guilty. And still, I didn't stop. I told myself we needed to try this. That maybe, just maybe, it would make us stronger. That maybe if he went out and experienced something too, I wouldn't feel so alone in my guilt. I never thought he actually would. But he did. A week later, I saw a text on his phone. Just one message. "Tonight was amazing. I haven't laughed like that in years." Red heart. Her name was Alina. He had met her through some mutual friend. I stared at that message for a long time. Not angry. Not jealous. Just stunned. Because in that moment, I realized. I had opened the door. And he had walked through it. Not because he wanted to. But because I left him with nowhere else to go. I thought I was the one in control. That I was setting the terms. That I could open the door, let in just enough freedom to breathe. And then close it again when I felt ready. But something shifted in Mark. And once it did, I couldn't unsee it. He started dressing differently. Simple things, cleaner shoes, a shirt that actually fit, a scent I didn't recognize. Not cologne I gave him, something new. Confident. He started smiling again. Not fake, polite smiles. Real ones. I heard him humming in the kitchen once. He hadn't done that in years. And then there were the late nights. At first, he said it was just dinner. But I could see it in his eyes when he came home. Something soft and new. Something I used to see, when he looked at me. He was falling for someone. Or maybe, he was just waking up from a long sleep. And the worst part. I didn't even have the right to be mad. I was the one who broke the rules. I was the one who introduced this experiment. I was the one who opened Pandora's box. And now I was choking on the air I had begged to breathe. I remember one night, he came home late, past midnight. I was curled up on the couch pretending to be asleep. He walked in quietly, took off his jacket. And I saw him pause in the hallway mirror. He looked at himself. Not with shame. Not with guilt. but with curiosity. Like he was finally seeing himself again. And in that moment, I felt invisible. Like I had already been replaced, not just by Alina, but by a version of him I no longer recognized. He wasn't angry. He wasn't cruel. He was just moving on. And me? I was stuck. I didn't want the man I'd cheated with. That flame burned out the moment it began. I wanted Mark. But the old version. The one who adored me blindly. The one who would never look at another woman the way he now looked at her. And I knew, deep down, that I had killed that version of him. Not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I was too afraid to face my own emptiness. And now, I was watching him become someone new. Someone freer, lighter. Someone, without me. It didn't end with a fight. There was no screaming, no accusations, no ultimatums. Just two people sitting at a table, knowing the thing between them had quietly died. I remember the way Mark looked at me that night. Calm, steady, exhausted. He said, "I don't hate you. But I don't think I love you anymore." And I knew it wasn't meant to hurt. He wasn't trying to be cruel. He was just finally telling the truth. The one I had forced him to carry for far too long. For a moment, I wanted to beg. To rewind everything. To promise I'd go back to who I was, who we were. But there was no going back. Because the foundation wasn't cracked. It was gone. We had both been living in ruins. Pretending it was still a home. We talked for a long time that night. About logistics. Who would move out, how we'd split things. Even who would keep our cat, Willow. It was surreal. So polite, so controlled. And yet underneath every word was the thunder of heartbreak. Unspoken, but deafening. I remember looking around the house while he spoke. Every corner held a memory. The dent in the wall from when we moved the couch and couldn't angle it right. The paint stain on the carpet from that one clumsy Sunday when we tried DIY art. The picture of us in Barcelona, where he held my hand like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. It was all still there. But it didn't belong to us anymore. Just to who we used to be. That night, I packed a suitcase. Not everything, just the essentials. As I zipped it closed, I realized how little I actually needed. And how much I was leaving behind. Before I left, I stood in the doorway and looked at him. He was sitting on the couch, staring at the TV. Not watching, just staring. I wanted to say something. Anything. But what do you say at the end of a life you built together? I'm sorry. Too small. I still love you. Too late. So I just whispered. Take care of yourself. And he nodded. No hug. No closure. Just silence. The same silence I once used to avoid the truth. Now wrapping around me like cold water. I stayed with my sister the first few nights. And each morning, I woke up hoping it was all just a bad dream. That I'd walk back into the house and find him in the kitchen, making coffee. Smiling at me like nothing had changed. But everything had. I checked his social media once. He posted a photo, not of her, not yet. But of a hiking trail. Something peaceful. Bright. And the caption. Healing. Day by day. That crushed me more than anything. Because I wanted him to hate me. To be angry. To be wrecked. But instead, he was healing. And I was the one left behind. The one who asked for more, and got it. But didn't realize I already had everything I needed. It's been almost a year. The papers were signed. The box is unpacked. New apartment, new bed, new routine. Everyone keeps saying how brave I was to choose myself. How empowered I must feel. But most days, I feel hollow. Not because I don't have love in my life, but because I let go of the one person who truly knew how to love me. Not perfectly. Not without mistakes. But deeply. Honestly. And I threw that away, chasing something I couldn't even define. I told myself I wanted space. But the truth is, I just wanted permission. Permission to escape boredom. To feel wanted again. To quiet the voice in my head that whispered, "Is this really it?" But I mistook restlessness for emptiness. And now, I know the difference. I scroll past his name sometimes. I never reach out. What would I even say? "I'm sorry I broke us. I thought I wanted freedom, but really, I just didn't want to be alone." Would it matter now? He looks happy. Genuinely. Not the kind of happy you fake for photos. But the kind that comes from peace. From knowing you survived something that was supposed to destroy you. And me? I'm surviving too. But not thriving. I smile, I work, I go on dates. But something in me changed forever the day I walked away from him. I thought I was starting a new chapter. Turns out, I was closing the book.